And I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint, and then it will lead into Katie's instruction for you on the breakout session. Since we have Liz with us for the first 30 minutes, honey, break in at any point on any of the slides from the PowerPoint before we go into breakout. And I think when Katie starts the breakout, that's probably when you'll need to leave for your meeting. Okay. Just give me a sec. All right. Here we go. I want to go through about 9 slides on how we're framing the 10 topics. And Zui, to your comment about Cambridge, pay a special attention to our approach, which we have been talking about since the workshop, which we have modified 2 or 3 times since the workshop. And I want everybody to be familiar with all of these 8 parts of what looks like will be a 20-page chapter for each of 10 topics that you have identified. So that adds up to about a 210-page teacher text when we add in a preface, TOC, which is the table of contents, the introduction, which explains our methodology, an index at the end, which is a quick scan for 2 topics, and also an allowance of some space in the book for new questions. So I'm going to go through each of these 8 elements in the next, how we open each chapter with a photograph and a profile, how we follow with 1 page that shows a scaffolded bending bamboo set of learning objectives that will face a page of learning objectives from Ting An and the Sustainable Development Goals, 4 pages on receptive skills, 4 pages on productive skills, 2 pages on tasks, 2 pages on norms, and then 4 pages at the end of each chapter which show the summative progress of the class. And that's really important for, I think, DOIT and Ting An and the ministry to see that we're covering all of their grammar points and vocabulary even beyond what Ting An and the ministry anticipate. And we're teaching development theory and practice, and we have results. So that's summative. And then the chapter closes with 2 pages for closure, but closure is also opening. Closure is a review of what we've just done, but it's also looking ahead to the next topic, to the next chapter. So let me highlight the very first part, that each chapter has 8 parts. And we're trying to get, with your help, with your input through the forum, and very soon a repository, we're trying to get to a draft of that teacher text covering 10 topics. Our aim is very ambitious to have that draft done by the last day of December and to have it into your hands so that we can critique it at the March workshop and test it out. And during January, February, and March, and then with your input at the March workshop, we put it into final form and we have it ready for publication. Each chapter, we are assuming, should work within 8 45-minute periods alongside the English language materials that you are issued to use, whether that is Ting An or anything else. So that's our time limit for trying to get through a chapter. The preface of each chapter acknowledges the contribution of the Gunta 7, which will grow to the Gunta 15 as we add more teachers, and it explains explicitly our theory and our methodology in IC-FI and Bending Bamboo. The introduction is different than the preface. The introduction explains the communicative approach and our methodology for making it happen. The table of contents at the front and the index at the back allow someone to quickly scan our book and find things that are relevant to the class that they are teaching, the subject they are teaching. And please note, that the 10 topics that you've chosen are not exactly as we find them in the UN SDGs or the Tingan books. They are all related, but they are not exactly point for point the same topics as the SDGs and Tingan. For instance, today we are talking about care. And in Tingan, it talks about care for those in need. But our definition of care is broader than that. It means no poverty, no hunger, community, humane, cities, inclusive, urbanization. And it's that way with all 10 topics. Bending Bamboo uses a natural order, communicative approach, IC5 method to grow the future. All right? And then questions are how we end each chapter. Here again are the topics. We've done identity, education, and climate change. Today we're working on care. And I want you to be thinking as well about unifying themes. And out of the workshop, we had bilingualism with purpose. And then from the Gunta 7, we started talking about active bilingual families. Because if the family engages Bending Bamboo, then this is a completely different approach than just relying on the high school teacher or the junior high school teacher or the elementary school teacher and 45-minute class periods. Bending Bamboo can be something that we put into the hands of language centers and institutes and television stations and active bilingual families. And then what I want to also introduce today is the possibility of another unifying theme, model delta stakeholders. And I'll explain as we go along what I mean by that. But the point I want to emphasize here is that your suggestions on other unifying themes are very welcome. Please let us know if you have some. So how do we treat that opening 2 pages? One page is of a photograph. And that photograph is a really well taken high definition photo from Zui or from Mark or from Bruce or from others of you with good cameras. And that photograph captures a profile or a story of a model delta stakeholder. So on the one side of the book will be a full page photograph. On the next page will be a 1-page profile or story that we write. And it's about the delta stakeholder, some local example of a teacher or students in an English club at a high school or a junior high school, or a vendor at the market, or somebody at the television station, somebody who is doing it right. They are bilingual with purpose. So the point here is to elevate with a photograph and a profile somebody today, an ordinary person who is doing extraordinary, really good work with their English. So we're not looking for national heroes because people don't think they can be a national hero, but people and high school students and junior high school students and teachers can be somebody for whom we write a profile and say they're doing bilingualism really well. Okay? By contrast, Tingan sidelines Vietnamese students. It doesn't talk really about real Vietnamese people today. Bending Bamboo will. It'll highlight the very people who are showing bilingualism with purpose. Not heroes and heroines, but real life profiles and stories that validate every single learner of English from class or from out of class, from the family, from the community. And as we discussed in the July workshop, a stakeholder could be any one of us, the student, the teacher, the classroom, the whole campus. This will engage a wide spectrum of people, youth, adults, and institutes. So this is a real advantage of Bending Bamboo. We're not confined to just the English language classroom. Next, let me highlight what we do at the beginning of a chapter, explaining the learning objectives. So one whole page divided in half, one half on the linguistic learning objectives of Bending Bamboo, and the other half of the page on development learning objectives. And on that page, we give 3 levels of achievement, from developing to acquiring to excelling. And that's a rubric. I'll explain rubric in a minute. Facing this page is a very quick summary of the relevant or the related Ting An learning objectives, and the related UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So critical to every page of Bending Bamboo is scaffolding across language and across development. And while we group grades 10 to 12, and in the next teacher text 7 to 9 and 1 to 6, we scaffold all the way. We'll have a Bending Bamboo rubric that shows in one column things that a teacher and student could say, okay, here is a teenager who is developing their language or their development skills, or acquiring, which is a step above, or excelling, which is really where we want to get everybody to. And that rubric works for grade 10, for grade 11, and for grade 12. Grade 10, the sophomores in high school, they would basically be developing. Grade 11, the goal would be to acquire. Grade 12, the goal would be to excel. Okay, so very clear learning objectives for teachers, for campuses to identify current and particular competence and confidence. And then again, the facing page would be the UN SDGs, which of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals apply to this topic in this chapter, and which levels and units of Ting An apply to our Bending Bamboo topic and chapter. Let me just pause and ask, are there any questions thus far? And Liz, do you have any comments that you want to interject? You're muted, Liz. Liz, you're muted.
The one thing that we also were talking about was in that profile, there would be the introduction to the topic, as well as introduction to a lot of the vocabulary that would be used within the chapter. So the purpose of the profile also is to highlight things that would be learned in the chapter, as well as vocabulary and grammar and that sort of thing.
Good. And it will be kept brief. So it's just a page, and it's a page for a profile. It's not the person's whole life story, but it is a story about a person in real time in Guntao or in the Mekong Delta. And as Liz says, there would be the scaffolding there too of necessary vocabulary and how it connects to the topic of the chapter. Okay, this is a form of art, to tell a story, to narrate somebody's importance. This is art. We don't want it to be stiff and say we are picking, for instance, Zui because he is the model high school teacher in Guntao. That would be very stiff and boring. Sorry, Zui. But we could tell a story about, Zui as a high school teacher in a rural context, in a district town, and how his students are modeling bilingualism with purpose. That would be the point. Make it fun, make it engaging, not boring. Okay, I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen.
And of course, you have to be the ones that help us identify those people.
Yep, and that begins even today with Kitty's assignment to people in the breakout rooms. Absolutely. Okay, next slide. Here we go. So we have 4 pages then of receptive skills. And receptive, again, is reading and listening in linguistics. And it's acquiring development knowledge in development. So those are receptive skills. And all of it is going to be communicative. So we're building it on Delta context and content. And we're trying to build competence. So in Krashen, in his theorizing, this is I+1. Okay, so it's engaging, it's interesting, and it is about Vietnamese Delta context and content. And we add another level of pushing the students, encouraging the students to go further in reading, in listening, and in development knowledge. So it's integrative linguistics and development. We have readings, we have audio, we have video, we have tape scripts that refer to the current Delta context and content, plenty of scaffolding, and then step-by-step examples of related development into Delta with that chapter content. So if it's care, all of the information, the content that would be delivered in these 4 pages on receptive skills would be about how we define care in Guntha and the Delta. And here teachers and students alike become, with us, and this was Liz's point, investigators, contributors to emerging bending bamboo materials. Now, the flip side of receptive skills is productive skills. So there we are again giving 4 pages. In linguistics, productive means speaking and writing. So we take what we read and we listen, and then we produce speaking and writing. But in development, we're taking the knowledge and we're turning it into development skills. So I'm playing here with Stephen Krashen, and I'm calling that I plus 1 plus 1. So from receptive to productive, the integrative skills, which are now speaking, reading, and development practice, let's call that DP. I can summarize the whole thing this way. Receptive is reading, listening, basic development, we call that I plus 1, plus productive, speaking, writing, development practice, we call that I plus 1 plus 1, and that equals a natural order communicative approach for the Delta. That leads to 2 pages on tasks, where we apply the linguistic and the development education to the surrounding community. And I'm suggesting at the end of those 2 pages, we have chapter by chapter, a place where teachers and students log and journal how they're doing. Okay, so 2 pages of scaffolded, Delta, pertinent, student-driven tasks on how they're using bilingual. And that log, for instance, would say where they applied their receptive and productive skills, how they played out the task, with whom did they use English or practice development, for how many hours, for how many days of the week, and why, and this is terribly important, why students are applying bilingualism to development. And this is the basis for our monitoring and evaluation. ME means monitoring and evaluation. Then 2 pages on norms. And norms are our new behavior patterns of the students, of the teachers, of the families, of the campuses. And I thought at the end of these 2 pages, there could be a section for journaling, self-evaluative journaling. This is how my behavior is changing. Norms can be measured in a lot of ways. We can have our own monitoring and evaluation, like the log or the journal, or language tests. We can also have something that correlates to the WPI, the World Poverty Index, or the HDI, the Human Development Index, or KPI, Key Performance Indicators. These are all forms of monitoring and evaluation that the Guntha 7 in the master's program are working on now, or will be working on in the next week or 2 with their professor. And as we add more teachers to the master's program, many of you will be familiar with how to measure normative change. There's a lot there, and I'm not going to go into greater detail right now. What is the summative progress of all of this? This would be 2 pages towards the very near end of each chapter, where we review grammar points, new vocabulary that's been introduced, development theory and practice that has been introduced, and results. What are the results? Can we add up? That is summative. Can we sum up, summative, the results from that chapter? We want to be able to assure your principal, DOIT and MOIT, and the people of the Delta that Bending Bamboo is answering its learning objectives and meeting all of Ting An learning objectives and applying UN Sustainable Development Goals, but perhaps most importantly, meeting community needs. This section of the chapter is based on Krashen's monitoring hypothesis, where we review grammar and vocabulary for second language acquisition as necessary. And the last part is a 2-page closure, but a closure is an opener, allowing the individuals, classes, and schools to discuss and note how they're moving forward. This is where we practice what we preach. We end each chapter with space for critical thinking, for a response from each class. And we can have this done electronically, and high schools and junior high schools can report to us their response. That's perfect data for monitoring and evaluation. And it's also where we capture their new questions, which will help us write the next topic. And it's the ongoing cycle. It is how each class takes this week's topic that we have spent 45 minutes working on, and we look ahead to the next topic. It's a continuing cycle. And for those who are familiar with my writing assignments on QT, this is exactly the QT format. Okay, let me jump out of sharing to see if there are any questions or comments. I've gone through a lot very quickly. Be sure to unmute because Katie has you muted if you have any questions or comments. Okay, that's either a good sign or a bad sign. I've either captured your imagination or I have put you to sleep at this late hour of night. So let me assume I captured your imagination, and let me now finish out the PowerPoint, and then we will open it up for discussion before Katie puts you into breakout rooms. Back to screen sharing. Okay, we want to frame each chapter with 2 banners. You're familiar with the UN Sustainable Development Goal banner, and Bruce and I spent a little time yesterday talking about our own Bending Bamboo 10 banner, BB10. The UN has SDG, we've got BB10. So it would be based on our whole approach to receptive and productive linguistic and development skills, and it would be something that we could hang in a room or have others hang right alongside that UN Sustainable Development set of 17 goals. Ours would be with the logo of Bending Bamboo, but then feature 10 symbols, each of them relating to our 10 topics. And these symbols are just suggestions on Bending Bamboo symbols. We need your help on figuring out what 10 symbols, images, that Bruce could turn into a very simple diagram, like what you see in the UN SDG goals. And each of those symbols would capture what we are saying about that topic. Does that make sense? This is a way to brand our approach to bilingualism with purpose, or active bilingual families, or model Delta stakeholders. So here are those model developers of the Delta. And you know, we have now more than 2,000 photos that Zui, Bruce, and Mark have taken of our teachers and students in action. And we can keep building on these, not just for the profiles of each chapter and the content of the chapter, but these become the face that we put on that banner of 10, the BB10, the Bending Bamboo 10 topics. And just a reminder, this idea of using real life people as legends in their own time, as model Delta stakeholders, comes from this famous radio host, journalist, and narrator and author, Studs Terkel. So what the hell is water? Here are fish again. It's our observation of the bilingual individuals and workers and families across the Delta who are the models of bilingualism with purpose. And water, actually, here might be your students and campuses around these 10 topics and unifying themes. And Katie is going to be sure to have your input by the end of today's class on next week's topic. But Katie, let me stop screen sharing, ask if there are any questions, and then turn it to you for breakout session. And Liz, before we lose you to your meeting, do you have any further comments?
No.
Sorry, I've got 2 dogs in the house. I gotta put them outside really quick.
I don't think I have anything more to add. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there. You have the PowerPoint on the Google Drive that was put up this morning. So you can take another look at it. Katie's been recording this, and she'll be putting the recording up on the Google Drive as well. So you can replay it and let us know you're very critical.
Okay. So first I want to do our guiding task, choose our guiding task. So I'm going to share that document right now. So you all know the drill. You have 2-3 minutes, read these guiding tasks, and then choose which one you think should lead this lesson or lead this unit. So.
And they will vote by sending you a chat, right?
Yep. All right, 10 more seconds if you haven't gotten your vote in. Okay, let me tally our score. So based on, so these little stars are people who responded to my pre-forum assignment. So I'm counting those as extra votes. So based on our tally, it's number 2 will be our guiding task. But remember, if you like a task on this list, that can also be a subtask for your lesson. You can tie it to the guiding task. All right, so now I'm going to stop share this. Did everybody receive my email with the breakout room assignments? Yeah. Okay. So we are going to go into breakout rooms, and this week it's going to be unique because each breakout room will have a different assignment. So once I put you into the groups, your program associate, one of our Gunta 7, will open up the correct file. So Gunta 7, listen for which assignment you have. So in 2's group, you'll have productive. In Yui's group, you'll have receptive. And then in Trup's group, you'll have narrative. And also, so those are 3 groups. When you get into your breakout group, Gunta 7, I've given you recording power, so please record your breakout group, okay? And then send to me after the forum ends. We will have 40 minutes per usual to do our assignments. Are there any questions before we go in? Alrighty. Somebody.
Not finished.
Not finished. I feel like you say that every time we come back.
Hi.
Hi.
We are not finished.
Katie, did you hear?
You are more than welcome to me after this to finish. Okay, so we have about 9 minutes until end time. Can each reporter raise their virtual hand or real hand? Okay, Tan, Anne, and who's my 3rd reporter? Who's my reporter for the 3rd group?
In.
Huh?
In.
In.
Or is it Yin? Yin, okay, got it. And Yin, okay. So from my reporters, I want to know, was the assignment clear that I gave you? If not, why? And then what content are you going to use in your lesson? It's two very guided questions, okay? Was the assignment clear? If not, why? And then what content are you going to use in your lesson? So let's start with Ms. Tan, Kim Tan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Our assignment is about receptive skill.
Okay.
So our content is after this unit, students are able to recognize or to identify who are in need around them. Maybe like members in their family or friends or some people that they live around them. The person, maybe they don't have this disabled, but they are in need, like they have poor condition, okay? And after reading, they know what should they do, and they can they understand how lucky they are, and they have positive thinking. They change their attitude to other people, but they don't have what they aren't lucky like them.
Okay, great. And did your group feel that the breakout assignment was clear?
Yes, clear.
Okay, great. Let's move on to Anne.
Just a second. Okay, so we work on narrative. So the instruction is really clear. So we talk about the story about Mr. Kung, who worked on the cacao field, the cacao garden, to make chocolate. I know you know him, right?
He's my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason we want to talk about him is that, well, because he's making innovation to produce chocolate in Cần City, which seems like the cacao tree is not really suitable for this kind of weather, but he made it. He created innovation and successfully grow this kind of tree and make the chocolates. So and also he does ecotourism. He's one of the pioneer in doing this ecotourism in Mekong Delta.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
How does his story relate to care?
Yeah, because you know what, we try to make the context for this this story, because everyone else just concentrate on growing rice and you know, other fruit, and you know, doing aquaculture in in this region. So he making something new, that's going to help a lot to reduce poverty, and uh, and also the ecotourism will reserve the environment a lot, and it's going to help to sustain the development of the whole community.
Great. Okay. So you're saying that his job choice cares for the whole society in ways we might not think about. While you create your interview questions, I encourage you to create interview questions that get to that point, because the topic is care.
Yeah.
And I
So
can see
at the moment we have 7 questions.
Okay.
So let's go for, yeah, number 1, what makes you passionate about carrying this project? Number 2, what advantages and disadvantages have you faced when you do this project? And number 3, how long does it take to achieve the present success? Number 4, how does the local government or family support you on this project? And number 5, can you share with us the time that you study in abroad, how to make chocolate, and how do you differentiate your chocolate from others? Number 6, what is your message to the young to lead the innovation and development of community? And number 7, how would you like to help community with this project, like creating more jobs, modeling, training, etc.
Okay, good. I'm excited to see your final product. And
yeah, we're gonna add on some more questions later on.
Okay, great. Yep. Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. And then Miss Yin.
Katie, can I have 2 minutes? Anh ơi, I have just been with him just last week. I took a group of students being there, and 5 of 7, the 7 questions you have just asked, he cannot give you the proper response because he is closing some parts of the places over there. For example, like the homestay. He's on the crisis right now. But one of the projects I think really nice for
financial crisis.
He could not handle the business right now. He's looking for, you know, like great motivation from kids to take over his place. He was extremely tired in the morning, and I suggested him one of the really very good one to what you have just asked. Like I can send the student to be the volunteer, and he can give the introduction of what you have just asked him to that, and they can play the role of the local tour guide with their payment. So one of the things I talked to his wife, he's going to leave that really soon because he's like a little bit like burnt out right now, very tired. So that is the reality. That is what I have like half an hour talk to him and his wife. We are trying to do some kind of like assistant, sending my student to like in the morning for 3 or 4 hours to help him with their payment, and hopefully they can like in return they can learn something for their future job.
Yeah,
that is the reality about the society. If you really want to.
Yeah, this is really important news for us. This is really
just 1 week ago. Okay.
Thank you.
This is totally authentic.
Discuss in our group again, and to consider if we can do some different story.
No. Use his story.
No, this is the perfect story.
It's a perfect story.
And offering care is really difficult work, and people burn out. And the person who needs to be recognized in need of some care right now is Mui Gung.
Yep.
We don't drop the story because a man in his 60s is getting burned out. We support him as a member of the community because he's got the vision. He knows what to do, and he needs to pass it on.
Yeah, so your
That
students could change.
That is care.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we're gonna change, add on some more questions related to his current situation.
Yeah, how could we care for Mui Kung right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That
Thank
is
you.
what
And
I really
Kaluri suggests one.
Mhm.
Kaluri just suggested one to send help assistant with
Yeah.
students so that they can help. They can do some intern at
See, yeah.
the
This is a story. This is great, right? It's not just humor, it's a story.
yeah.
got that.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Loved it. Let's go to Miss Yin on productive skills. Miss Yin, can you tell us, did you think the assignment for the breakouts was clear? And then what type of content are you going to use in your lesson?
Okay, the assignment is clear for us, but for the content, we list some problems with the students facing, such as they don't have enough soft skills and hard skills to meet the demand of the society.
Mm-hmm.
And they also suffer from financial problems. So they have to sell sufficient. They have to do part-time job to earn enough for living. And based on some problems the students are facing, we decide a lesson. For speaking tasks, we divide students in 4 groups, and each group will take up the role in the society, such as become a scientist or educator. And the teacher will give each group one situation, suggest one problem the students have to solve. And after they discuss the problem and the solution, they will present in class. And the students have to take note the problems and the solution. And after that, we will give writing tasks for students based on their notes in class.
Great. I encourage you, because I've read a lot in like news organizations about the lack of job readiness of the Vietnamese youth. So if you could find an article like that to put into your lesson, that would be great. So that we can think this is also a part of care. We have urbanization, we have new jobs, but maybe we aren't ready to take those new jobs. Okay, great, thank you. Any final thoughts or questions before we say goodnight?
Kitty,
Yeah.
just I repeat that I suggest people to read the unit before you go to the breakout room, because it's like quite embarrassing if we explain everything again from the beginning. The second point, sometimes we need to be realistic with the, for example, you suggested the reading, but they have only 45 minutes.
Yeah.
One lesson. We can do that as a backup if you have, like more time with that. With the reading, the suggestion can be the reference, but the second thing can be like the interdependence of all of the skill. They raise a really good question, like what are the problems you discuss from receptive skill? You know what I mean, like from other session of the class. So we deal with the same thing when we do with Tiếng Anh 11. Remember the Cần Thơ 7 did a lesson plan. We put the thing apart, and then it's really hard to make the interdependent among all.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think my group raised up really nice question for that, but we try to finish the mission. We try to do the thing. Okay.
Yeah. And I think to respond to your comment about the reading, that it might be too much for one class period, with those kind of articles that talk about youth and job readiness, you can do quick facts. So you as a teacher read the article, then you pull out the most surprising facts or most important facts to you. Like 50% of the population in Vietnam is under 25. What's the youth unemployment rate? Something like that. Something to kind of like put this into immediate context for your students. Yeah, Dan.
And this is the type of material to put into the repository.
Yeah.
Right now we're launching the writing and the research. Next comes the launch of the repository, and chapter by chapter, topic by topic, not one teacher, but all the engaged teachers here can be contributing this kind of information. Katie, before you sign off, I just want to think that I just want to say that I think what came out of the breakout sessions and the discussion afterward was fantastic. You're now thinking in a holistic and creative and integrative way about the topic of care. And it is a care that identifies people that we might overlook, that we think, oh, this person is so totally on top of ecotourism and making and selling chocolate. But no, here is an elder in the community who has taught us a lot, who needs care. And he can also care for us. So it's really a beautiful example of the progress that everybody together here is making. So I'm really encouraged. This is good.
Yep, very good. Okay, reporters, as always, please send me your final product of this breakout group as soon as possible. I understand you probably want to go to bed tonight, but if you could send it tomorrow, that would be great. And yes, have a good night. See you next week.
Good night.
Bye, 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 bye.
Katie,
Also, if you want to work more with your group, hop on a Zoom meeting. You can totally work more with your group to finish this. And also, my Gunta 7, send me your recordings so I can put that on YouTube. Okay.
And Zui Ai, send me some information about this Cambridge project. Very, very helpful to learn about it. Thank you.
Okay, goodbye.